She left her village chasing dreams, but Lagos was ready to break her. Hungry, alone, and betrayed. Could she survive the city that crushes the weak? The morning sun rose gently over the village, touching the mud houses and narrow paths like a quiet blessing. Birds sang as they always did, unaware that for one young girl, everything was about to change. She stood in the small courtyard, her bag packed, her heart racing between excitement and fear. "I'm going to Lagos," she said softly yet firmly. The words fell heavy in the air. Her mother froze. She looked at her daughter the way a mother looks when she senses danger but has no power to stop destiny. Lagos was not just a city to her. It was a place of stories, warnings, and silent prayers whispered by women who had lost children to the unknown. "My daughter," her mother said, holding her hands tightly, "are you sure about this decision? Lagos is not gentle, especially to young girls." The girl smiled, trying to sound brave. She spoke of dreams, of work, of sending money home, of becoming someone the village would be proud of. Her voice was confident, but her hands trembled slightly. What could possibly go wrong when you are chasing a better life? Her mother pulled her close, resting her forehead against hers. Prayers poured out. Prayers for protection, for wisdom, for strength in a land that shows no mercy. She warned her not to trust easily, not to accept gifts from strangers, and to guard her dignity more than money. "I will be fine. I have to be." Neighbors gathered slowly, some wishing her well, others shaking their heads in silence. A few smiled with hope. Others watched with pity, as if they already knew the price she would pay. The village had seen many leave. Not all returned the same. When the bus arrived, its old engine roaring impatiently, her heart skipped. This was it. The moment where dreams stop being thoughts and start becoming risk. Her mother adjusted her bag, slipped a small amount of money into her hand, and whispered one last prayer. Tears filled her eyes, but she refused to cry. She did not want fear to be the last thing her daughter carried into the world. The girl climbed onto the bus and found a seat by the window. As it began to move, she looked back. Her mother was still standing there, growing smaller with every meter, waving slowly like she was letting go of a part of her soul. She waved back, forcing a smile, holding on to hope like it was enough to protect her. She did not know it yet, but this goodbye was not just to her home. It was to the girl she used to be. Sometimes, the journey to becoming strong begins the moment comfort is left behind. Night swallowed the road as the bus pushed forward, its weak headlights cutting through darkness that felt endless. The village lights disappeared quickly, replaced by long stretches of silence broken only by the engine's groan and the restless shifting of passengers. At first, she sat upright, holding her bag tightly on her lap, eyes wide with curiosity. This was her first long journey, her first step into a life she had imagined so many times. But as the night grew deeper, excitement slowly gave way to unease. The bus was full of strangers. She tightened her grip on her bag, remembering her mother's warning. "Do not trust. Do not relax. Do not sleep too deeply." "I wish it was morning already." A man a few seats away leaned forward, staring at her for a moment too long. She shifted uncomfortably, turning her face toward the window. Her reflection stared back at her, young, hopeful, and suddenly very small. For the first time since leaving home, doubt entered her heart. What if Lagos is not waiting for me the way I imagined? The bus moved again, faster this time, as if racing the night. Heat filled the air, mixed with sweat and exhaustion. Her clothes clung to her skin. Sleep came in short, broken moments, each one ending with her waking suddenly, unsure of where she was. Every sound felt louder. Every movement felt suspicious. The farther the bus traveled, the farther she felt from safety. The village, her mother's voice, the familiar breeze, they all felt like memories from another life. By the time distant city lights began to flicker on the horizon, her excitement was gone. In its place was a quiet fear she could not name. Lagos was close now, and it no longer felt like a dream. It felt like a test she had not prepared for. That night, on a moving bus surrounded by strangers, she learned her first lesson. The road to a new life often begins by teaching you how alone you truly are. The bus slowed down, then stopped with a tired hiss. Before she could even stand, noise rushed in like a storm. Voices shouted from every direction. Horns blared without apology. The air felt thick, hot, and heavy, pressing against her chest as if the city itself was breathing down her neck. This was Lagos. She stepped down from the bus and the ground seemed to move under her feet. People pushed past her without looking. No one waited. No one noticed. Everyone was in a hurry to get somewhere, and she was suddenly in everyone's way. The heat hit her like a wall. Sweat formed instantly on her forehead, sliding down her neck. The smell of fuel, food, and something sour mixed together, creating an air that felt angry and restless. She covered her nose for a moment, then dropped her hand, realizing no one else cared. Is this the place everyone runs to for a better life? Cars sped by too close. Motorbikes rushed past, missing her by inches. Men shouted directions she didn't understand. Women balanced heavy loads on their heads, walking faster than she could imagine. She stood there with her small bag, feeling exposed, unsure where to turn. Her heart pounded as fear crept in. This city did not pause. It did not soften its voice for newcomers. Lagos did not welcome her. It challenged her. I thought I was brave, but this feels bigger than me. She tried to move forward, but the crowd swallowed her. Someone bumped into her shoulder hard enough to spin her around. No apology followed. Another person brushed past, eyes fixed ahead, already gone. She tightened her grip on her bag, remembering her mother's words, her warnings echoing louder now. Every sound felt sharp. Every face looked serious, tired, or angry. There were no smiles of curiosity, no gentle questions. The excitement she carried from the village drained away, replaced by a cold awareness. She was alone in a city that had no time for weakness. She watched a young man argue loudly with a driver. She saw a woman shout back at a trader without fear. Everyone here seemed armored, hardened by something she had not yet faced. This was not the Lagos of her imagination, the one filled with quick success and shining opportunities. This Lagos was fast, loud, and unforgiving. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to move. Standing still was dangerous here. In Lagos, hesitation looked like ignorance, and ignorance invited trouble. As she followed the flow of people, her steps grew quicker, her eyes sharper. Fear walked beside her now, not as an enemy, but as a warning. This was her first morning in Lagos, and the city had already spoken clearly. Lagos does not smile at you when you arrive. It waits to see if you can stand. Morning came without kindness. The sun rose over Lagos like a burden, not a blessing. Heat filled the room before she even opened her eyes, and noise rushed in through the thin walls as if the city had never slept. She followed her cousin into the compound, still quiet, still hopeful that daylight might soften the city. Instead, reality greeted her immediately. "Who used the water last night?" a woman shouted, her voice sharp and impatient. Before she could understand what was happening, fingers pointed in her direction. She tried to explain, her voice low and respectful, but respect meant nothing here. Water, she learned, was not a gift, it was a bill. In her village, water flowed freely. In Lagos, even thirst had an owner. So even water has a price here. As the day unfolded, each small task came with a demand. Rent discussions echoed through the compound. Words like extra, payment, and increase floating through the air like threats. Her presence alone felt expensive, like she was already owing the city for daring to exist in it. Hunger followed closely. When she walked to buy food, the prices stunned her. A small portion that would feed her for days back home now barely filled her palm. She counted her money again and again, hoping the numbers would change. How can survival cost this much? She tried to bargain, her voice polite, her eyes tired. The seller looked at her without sympathy. Kindness, she realized, was a luxury in a city built on urgency. If you could not pay, you could not eat. She returned home quieter, carrying less food than dignity. Her savings shrank quickly, each naira slipping away like sand through her fingers. With every purchase, she felt something else leaving her: confidence, pride, certainty. By evening, exhaustion settled into her bones. The city's noise had not slowed. Music blared somewhere nearby. Voices argued over nothing and everything. Lagos was alive, but she felt smaller with every passing hour. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, listening to her stomach growl softly. For the first time, the idea of returning home crept into her mind, not as failure, but as relief. But she pushed it away. I did not come this far to be defeated by hunger. That night, as darkness covered the city, she understood something important. Lagos was not cruel because it wanted to be. It was demanding because it could be. The city did not care about effort, only survival. This was the day she learned that in Lagos, nothing is free. Not water, not food, and not pride. And sometimes, the first price you pay for a dream is your comfort. The shop was small, cramped between louder businesses, but to her, it looked like hope. Shelves stacked unevenly, a narrow counter, the smell of food mixed with dust. This was where she would begin. When the woman behind the counter agreed to give her work, relief washed over her face like rain after drought. She nodded quickly, grateful, ready to prove herself. The day started early, very early. Before her stomach could even remind her that she had not eaten, customers began to arrive. Voices were sharp, impatient. Money was pushed across the counter and pulled back just as fast. She struggled to keep up, hands shaking slightly as she tried to remember prices and names. "Faster," the woman snapped. "Pay attention," another voice followed. She apologized again and again, her voice growing smaller each time. Hunger tightened inside her, but there was no break, no chair, no moment to breathe. Time stretched painfully, each hour heavier than the last. Is this what opportunity is supposed to feel like? By afternoon, her head was spinning. A customer complained. Another shouted. Someone accused her of moving too slowly. She swallowed her tears and kept working, telling herself this was normal, that endurance was the price of survival. Then the accusation came. Money was missing. The woman's eyes hardened as she looked at her, suspicion heavy in the air. No questions. No listening. Just blame. She tried to explain, her voice trembling, hands open as if honesty could be seen. "I didn't take anything," she said softly. The words meant nothing. Her chest burned with shame. Not because she was guilty, but because she was powerless. Around her, customers watched without care. In that moment, she was no longer a worker. She was a stranger, easily accused, easily replaced. "I came here to work, not to be treated like a thief." Evening arrived slowly. Her legs ached. Her eyes burned. When she finally asked about her pay, hope flickered again, brief, fragile. The answer crushed it. "No payment today," the woman said without looking at her. Observation, period. Observation. A word that hid cruelty behind formality. She stepped outside as the shop closed, empty-handed, stomach hollow, spirit bruised. The city lights flickered on, indifferent to her pain. Lagos did not care that she had given her strength, her patience, her dignity for nothing. As she walked home, every step felt heavier than the last. She wondered how many others had stood where she stood, believing hard work was enough. That night, lying awake, she understood a painful truth. In Lagos, some opportunities are not meant to lift you. They are meant to test how much you can endure. The nights grew longer, and the silence became heavier than the noise of Lagos. Each day ended with empty hands and a tired body, and each night began with thoughts she could not escape. She lay on a thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to distant horns and arguments that never seemed to sleep. Her stomach hurt, but it was not hunger alone. It was disappointment. She counted the days again, worked hard, endured insults, accepted blame that was not hers, and still nothing. No pay, no respect, no relief, only promises that never came. Her mind drifted back to the village, to her mother's worried eyes, to warm food shared without counting coins, to a place where her name meant something. What if I made a mistake coming here? The question frightened her more than the city itself. She imagined returning home, stepping off the bus with the same bag, but heavier shame. She could already hear the whispers, feel the looks that asked without words why she had failed. Lagos was cruel, but so was the thought of going back broken. If I return now, does that mean I am weak? Or just human? Tears slipped quietly down her face. She wiped them away quickly, as if someone might see. Even alone, she felt watched by her own expectations. She had come to build a future, not to cry in the dark. The next morning, her body moved out of habit, not hope. She walked through the streets slowly, watching people rush past her with purpose. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere. Everyone except her. A woman pushed past her without apology. A man shouted at her for standing too long. Lagos did not pause. Lagos did not care. She sat on a low step near a roadside stall, head in her hands, breath shallow. For the first time, quitting felt close. So close she could almost touch it. Is surviving supposed to hurt this much? Her chest tightened as doubt crept in. Maybe she was not strong enough. Maybe her dreams were too big for someone like her. The city had a way of shrinking people, of making them feel small and replaceable. But then, beneath the fear, another voice whispered. Softer, quieter, stubborn. It reminded her why she left, why she endured, why she believed there could be more than this pain. She stood up slowly, wiping her face, straightening her clothes. She was not healed. She was not confident. But she was still standing. And in Lagos, sometimes standing is already an act of courage. The opportunity came quietly, almost shy, like it was afraid of being rejected. She heard about it while waiting by the roadside, listening to two women talk about a small creative job. Simple work, short time, little pay, but honest pay. The words caught her attention like a hand reaching out in the dark. She stood there, unsure if she should even ask. Her heart beat faster as she walked closer, each step filled with doubt. She had no experience, no confidence, and very little belief left in herself. Lagos had taught her to be careful, to question every promise, to expect disappointment before hope. What if this is another trap? One of the women looked at her and asked if she could try. Just try. The word felt heavy. Trying meant risking another failure. Trying meant opening herself to judgment again. Trying meant stepping out of the small corner she had hidden in since arriving in the city. Her hands trembled slightly as she nodded. Inside, fear and hope argued loudly. Fear reminded her of insults, unpaid work, and nights spent hungry. Hope whispered that this could be different, that not every door in Lagos was meant to crush her fingers. I am scared, but I am more tired of being invisible. She followed them to a small space filled with simple tools and unfinished ideas. Nothing fancy, nothing grand, but it felt honest. For the first time in days, someone explained things to her without shouting. For the first time, someone waited while she learned. Still, doubt clung to her like a shadow. She worried about making mistakes, about being laughed at, about being told she was not good enough. Every sound made her flinch, every pause felt like judgment. But then she noticed something new. Her hands were busy. Her mind was focused. The noise of Lagos faded just a little. She was not thinking about hunger or shame or yesterday's pain. She was thinking about the task in front of her. Time passed differently there. When she finished, she looked up, holding her breath. The women nodded. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough to say she had done okay. Okay. The word warmed her more than food ever could. As she walked away later, fear still followed her, but it was quieter now. The city had not changed. Life was still hard. Nothing was guaranteed. But something inside her had shifted. She realized that sometimes change does not arrive with confidence. Sometimes it arrives trembling, asking. Something began to change, slowly and quietly, like morning light entering a dark room. It did not happen all at once. There was no celebration, no sudden miracle. But day by day, she started to understand Lagos. Not as a dream, not as a monster, but as a place with rules of its own. She learned to listen more and speak less. She learned when to push forward and when to step back. Her eyes became sharper, her steps more confident. Fear still lived inside her, but it no longer controlled her. She woke up earlier now, not just to survive, but to prepare. Her clothes were simple but clean, her posture straighter. When people spoke to her harshly, she no longer shrank. She responded calmly, firmly, without apology for existing. Why does the city treat you differently when you stop begging it for mercy? She noticed it first in small ways. People waited while she finished speaking. Instructions were given with less shouting. Questions were answered instead of ignored. It was not kindness, but it was respect. And respect, in Lagos, is a form of currency. Inside her, confidence was growing roots. She no longer accepted every offer out of desperation. She asked questions. She watched carefully. She trusted her instincts, the same instincts she once doubted. I am still afraid, but I am no longer lost. The city felt the difference. Lagos responds to strength, even quiet strength. As she changed from within, the world around her adjusted. Doors did not swing open, but they stopped slamming shut. Opportunities came with clearer terms. Work came with payment, even if small. She began to understand that Lagos does not reward innocence. It tests endurance. It breaks hesitation. It sharpens those who survive it long enough to learn. There were days she still felt tired. Days she still remembered hunger and humiliation. But those memories no longer defined her. They became lessons, carved deep, impossible to forget. When she walked now, she walked with purpose. Not rushing, not hiding, just moving forward one step at a time. She had learned that in Lagos you do not wait to be seen. You stand where you cannot be ignored. The city was still loud, still unforgiving, still hard. But she was harder now, and in that quiet transformation, she realized something powerful. She stands now where fear once stood taller than her. The city still moves fast around her. Horns calling, footsteps rushing, voices colliding. But inside her, there is a calm she did not arrive with. Lagos did not become softer. She became stronger. She looks back on the girl who arrived with wide eyes and a hopeful heart, carrying dreams wrapped in innocence. That girl was not foolish. She was brave. She dared to believe life could be more than what she had known. And even when Lagos tested her, even when it stripped her down to doubt and hunger, that bravery never fully left. What breaks a person, and what reveals them? She remembers the nights of tears, the days of unpaid labor, the moments of humiliation that tried to rename her. She remembers almost giving up, almost returning home convinced she was not enough. But she stayed. She learned. She adapted. And in doing so, she discovered something unexpected. Lagos did not erase her village roots. It sharpened them. The patience she learned as a child became endurance. The humility she was raised with became quiet strength. The respect she was taught became self-respect. I am still that village girl, but I am more now. She honors where she comes from without letting it cage her. She no longer feels small when she remembers home. She feels grounded. Her past is not a weakness. It is a foundation. Lagos showed her that identity is not something you lose in struggle. It is something struggle uncovers. She walks differently now, not with pride that shouts, but with confidence that does not need permission. She knows her worth. She knows her limits. She knows when to walk away and when to stand firm. The city that once tried to swallow her now reflects her strength back at her. Not because Lagos is kind, but because it respects those who survive with their spirit intact. She was not built by comfort. She was built by resistance, by choosing to stay when leaving felt easier, by believing in herself when no one else did. And as she moves forward, she carries this truth with her. Into every street, every opportunity, every challenge still waiting.